let me first introduce Lena. Lena has more than 15 years of experience working in the corporate sector, where she provided valuable consulting, training, and system design services to prestigious clients like Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, and Anglo-Irish Bank. However, in 2019, she decided to leave her corporate career in search of her true passion and purpose in life. Since then, Lena has become an award-winning entrepreneur and a renowned international speaker. Her mission is to bridge the gap between the corporate and spiritual realms, sharing her belief that self-knowledge is the key to real success and happiness. Lena has had an honor of being a keynote speaker at various important events, including Women in Tech, Disrupt HR in the Channel Islands and Wales, HR Tech in Copenhagen, Employer of the Future in Berlin, Future of Work in Singapore, and HR Champions in South Africa. Her ability to inspire audiences from different backgrounds is truly exceptional. In 2022, Lena received a publishing award from Brains magazine for her contributions. She co-authored a book called You Can Have It All, which explores how individuals can unlock their full potential. Today we have privilege to have Lena as our guest on this podcast. So get ready to be inspired as she shares her valuable insights, wisdom, and experiences. Relax, sit back and enjoy this conversation. And of course, towards the end, we will open up for Q&A from all our listeners. So hi Lena, welcome to this podcast. And if I have missed out on anything, please feel free to, share your thoughts.
Sure. Hi Sagar. Thank you so much for having me. It's really good to talk to you today.
Wonderful. So Lena, I would, first, I would love to understand what truly the future of work means, if you could share your thoughts there.
Yeah, so I think we all have our definition of what future work means. For me, it's all about finding that balance between mind, body, and spirit, right? It's more about a journey into ourselves. Because currently, we all predominantly focus on the mind. So it's all about reasoning and logic. And over the past few years, I can see that, organizations have made a lot of efforts to pay more attention to the employees' health and well-being, which is amazing. But when it comes to spirit, when it comes to self-knowledge, there isn't really much movement yet. And what I mean by the spirit is that relationship that we have with ourselves. Because when we have strong connection with ourselves, it impacts all areas of our lives. And especially when you think from organizational perspective, it impacts our connections and our relationships with others and also how we see the world. So in certain aspects, I think we kind of have it backwards now, because when we are so focused and on a material and physical things and disregard that connection with ourselves, we often will feel like a victim in our external circumstances. And meaning that, we basically what we're doing is we're giving the power to somebody over ourselves, because we say that this person, this circumstance, this event, this situation are responsible for how I feel. And this, I believe, is one of the main causes of office politics and dramas and conflicts, and it really distracts people from doing what they need to be doing, and it impacts productivity and engagement, not to mention the energy and time it takes to address these issues. And I speak at conferences, at events, and I spoke to a lot of especially HR managers, and they all say that one of the challenges is to deal and manage these difficult the conflicts and situations. So when we then allow those external circumstances to control us, and we always will, unless we have a leadership or organizations when they're encouraging their people to develop not just professionally but also personally. So when we have those external circumstances controlling us, we will never be able to resolve some of the most common workplace problems that we currently have, such as communication, imposter syndrome, performance, inequality, etc. So just in summary, basically for me, future work really is where I envisage companies promoting not just professional development, but also personal development of the people, instead of just trying to create an environment to accommodate everyone. They will really be creating an environment where people start taking ownership for their emotions, for their actions and behaviors.
So true, so true. Thank you, Lena, for sharing that. Just wanted to ask further, the way the world is moving forward. We have our personas that we share association with people on the physical world, and then we have a persona that we create on the digital world, and there is quite a possibility that knowingly or unknowingly we bring out that imposter within us. So you really made an important point, and that is really causing trouble to a lot of professionals. So how do one take care of the imposter syndrome? Could you like to share your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. In the imposter syndrome, I think all of us have come across it at one stage in our lives. I mean, I certainly experienced it in my career when I was back in a corporate world, thinking, oh, they're going to see through me, or how, I remember I was 26 and I was working at Microsoft on a project for Ministry of Defense, and I was like, how did I even end up here? Like, do I even belong? Are they going to see through me that I'm fake? That I wasn't really seeing my worth and my value. And that is because a lot of us, if you think about it, from the time we're pretty much born, we learn that our value has something to do with opinions of others about ourselves, right? Our parents will go, well done you, and they will give you like a chocolate or a sweet, and you're like, I've done something well. So they praise me, same as at school. But when you don't get praised, or when you get punished, or you get a detention, then you make it mean something about yourself, like you've done something wrong. And then we take it into our adulthood, into our professional careers. So we always kind of relying on that external validation and approval to tell us we're doing something right. And when we don't get it, we don't feel all of a sudden so confident within ourselves. And that's why I feel like it's that worthiness in the sense of values, like we're trying to be someone that others expect us to be in order for us to feel valuable. And when we don't, we don't get their feedback and validation, we don't feel worthy. And for some of us, we need it more than others. Some people have this natural ability and kind of confidence and that worthiness within them. But for many, it comes through self-inquiry, through self-development, through introspection, through meditation, whatever you want to call it, but through some kind of a practice that you cultivate that self-worth and value.
Got it. So what practice, you did, or, what practices you would suggest, that can help not only with this, but any other areas of life? Would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it's always like meditation is a big thing in my life, obviously. But even that, it's also got me to a certain stage. And if you actually start, I think self-inquiry is really useful, because when it comes to imposter syndrome, for me, it's your worthiness. But actually, at which stage do you start feeling worthy? Who determines what is the threshold between worthiness and unworthiness, So if you feel like, they're going to see through me, am I really worthy of this job? Am I meeting everyone's expectation? You can just start simply through self-inquiry, like, well, hang on a second, who actually decides I'm worthy or not? Like, who am I giving my power away to? That person outside of me? Okay, well, they may think, I'm doing a good job, but maybe somebody else doesn't think I'm doing a good job. If I ask my parents, they may think I'm doing okay. If I ask my friends, they will tell me I'm awesome. You know what I mean? And then you begin to understand that there's so many people around you. They all have their different opinions. And if you're going to try to accommodate yourself, or to try to fit everybody else's expectations, you can never meet them. So then eventually you just come to realize that the only common denominator in everything is you. Yeah. And it's up to you to decide whether you're worthy or not. But just like one of the spiritual leaders I listen, his name is Daryl Anka, or he's known as a Bashar. Daryl Anka is actually, he's a producer, Hollywood producer. He produced First Contact, I believe, but he's also a channeler, a very spiritual guy. And he says, just because you exist, you're worthy. That's it. Like, universe doesn't make mistakes. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, yes, I mean, the unworthiness, the imposter syndrome can still come up. It's a pattern. It's a conditioning. We've had it all our lives. But the more you do that self-inquiry, that introspection, the meditation, whatever it is, and by meditation, I don't mean you need to lock yourself in a cave and sit there for 10 years. It can be even just a quiet walk, you know, and you really just like start feeling into it. The more you kind of begin to dissolve those patterns and those beliefs of unworthiness, not being valued, not being seen, whatever that is, because it's not the truth.
Wow. Thank you, Lena, for, sharing this. I got goosebumps when you were sharing this, entire, your perspective here. So, on the say, you really shared a very good insight on the spiritual side, but at the same time, with the technological advancements and evolving work trends, how do you then envision the future of work?
Well, I think like with anything, there needs to be balance, right? I mean, I spent about 15 years as a techie. I mean, my background is computer science. I was a computer programmer for many years. I then moved into automating workflows, business analysis. So I understand how technology can really simplify our lives. If it wasn't for technology, we wouldn't be talking here. You in India, I'm in England.
Yes.
But there needs to be balance, right? It's like we've got to balance those things. And right now, I don't see this balance. It's all predominantly on AI, on tech, on let's create an environment where people are happy. We're going to give them this benefit and that benefit and this benefit. But it's like, well, no matter what you're doing, but if the person doesn't really understand who they are, if they don't have that sense of self, if they don't have a clear vision of their path, you can do anything is possible. I mean, you can do anything for them, but it's at the end of the day, like I always say, it's like trying to rearrange deck chairs on a Titanic and then expecting a different result.
Absolutely. So in this case, what, apart from, working on your own self, what do you feel are the key skills and qualities that, as individuals or as leaders, we must thrive for to learn and grow? Can you share your thoughts?
Yes, so I believe number one is emotional intelligence, because if we don't control our emotions, they will control us, and we know that, right? And what actually drives our emotions is our thoughts and beliefs. And it's our thoughts that, we've had for a while, or the beliefs that we've established probably in our childhood, to be honest, and then they impact how we feel about certain things. So what happens often is something outside of us will trigger us. We think this colleague, this person, this boss, whatever, doesn't respect us, doesn't see us, and we blame them. We judge them for making us feel a certain way, instead of like going, wow, thank you so much. What a blessing. I just saw my trauma. I just saw the wound, that paper cut. And we all have paper cuts inside of us that we haven't healed. And it could be like something as simple as like you dropping an ice cream when you're 5 years old and your parents not picking it up because they simply didn't notice it. And that fear of abandonment. Mm-hmm. And you carry that with you your whole life. And then we take it with us to workplaces. And, we don't realize what's actually happening. And we get stuck in this like reactive pattern where we always react to the same circumstances, to the same people. People rub us up the wrong way without really understanding that subconsciously we still being this 5-year-old. So there's actually a whole bunch of 5-year-olds running around in suits and trying to make decisions. So the whole thing then, when for me, the true leadership is like when people really begin to understand why they behave the way they do, why they act the way they do, and even sometimes consciously be aware that we are self-sabotaging, that we're not behaving in a way that we really should be, but we just can't help ourselves, and really beginning to dig deeper within ourselves.
Sure. So, I think what I have understood or realized, that a lot of people, they avoid seeking any kind of professional help. So, be it say in terms of getting a leadership coach, or for that matter, going out and getting a counselor, right? So there is some sort of I think here in India at least, like people, avoid sharing their personal concerns or personal issues even with the best of their friends. So or for that matter their colleagues. So how should one then go out and be open and share and express themselves?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you should be really running around and telling everybody about it, I think it was a Dr. Joe Dispenza or someone really said once, only when the fear of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of the unknown, that's when the true change is possible, right?
Wow.
So I think some of us will get to a place in our life where we look around and be like, well, things are just not working. I'm living this life because I think I should be living that life, but actually I am miserable, or maybe not even miserable, but there is a big disconnect between my soul, between my heart, and between my mind. And I can spend the rest of my life doing things I'm doing, telling myself stories I'm telling myself because I've got children, because I've got responsibilities, because I've got bills to pay, and I'm going to take this all the way to the grave with me. Or
Wow.
I can look at things differently. I can start creating my reality, because when we really start digging within ourselves, we understand that we are not this body. We're not this fragile, weak, pathetic selves that we sometimes think of ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not the mind, right? You're not the mind, because if you were the mind, you would be controlling your thoughts, meaning you can turn your thoughts on and off. But to try that, you can't. So you're not your thoughts, you're not your body.
Wow.
So who are you? You are the awareness. What is awareness? It's the pure energy. And that is a part of the universe. And you're actually capable of creating whatever it is that you want to create. So when we start then looking at it from that point of view, then you can decide, like, well, do I want to stay in this life, or do I actually want to, instead of looking always to one side, looking, let's say, to the left, I want to look to the right and explore what else is possible.
Wow. So, it's enlightening to, listen to this perspective. I just have a quick question here. How do, one go ahead about facing the fear of unknown? I mean, if you have some instances from your life, please feel free to share. That would be a good learning.
Sure. This is a very personal question, because, what's interesting really for me, I've never had any fears, like, ever. I mean, even now, like, I hurled myself out of the airplanes with a parachute after the 2-hour training. I've literally never had a fear in my life. There were challenges, and I was like, yeah, fine, bring it on. And then when I actually quit my job, it was 2019, and I started business, and nothing was working. Literally, no matter how much effort and energy I put into it, things just were not moving. I've invested multiple 5 figures. I've sold house. I've remortgaged my flats twice, I believe.
Oh my God.
I've maxed out my credit cards, and I just like, what is going on? And that's when the fear, I really started feeling it. It's like started overtaking. And initially it was such an unfamiliar feeling, because I didn't know what it was. I mean, I was stressed before, anxious maybe, like with the kids and the job, juggling, but I've never had a fear. And eventually, like, I don't know, it maybe went like for about a year and a half, and that actually, I guess not even inspired, but I had no other option to go deeper within myself. I've cut myself out pretty much from external world. Actually, funnily enough, it happened while we were going through COVID isolation. Yeah. And in a way that was, for me personally, that was a blessing, because it had really enabled me to go deeper within myself. And I spent maybe close to a year on a couch with meditating, with a flip chart in front of me, which is still in front of me.
Wow.
And just trying to figure that out. And yeah, I mean, I think eventually through going deeper within myself, through coaching and mentoring, and also just even reflecting on past memories and remembering how I've never failed at anything. Like everything always worked out for me, not in the way I thought it would be, but maybe even differently, but even better. And just reminding myself of that, connecting to me, to myself, not to my stories and to my crazy mind that was like keeping me looping. And then I think maybe I just had like burnt out. I mean, I had no energy to give to those thoughts anymore. Things started moving for me. But it was a process. It wasn't like, I opened my eyes and it was gone. It was a journey.
So it will be right for me to say that you are an enlightened being?
Well, define what enlightened being means, right? I don't think there is such a thing. I mean, I don't know. Like Buddha, I think, said enlightenment is the end of all suffering. And am I free of all suffering? No. There's always something comes up. It's just a deeper sense of awareness. And you begin to catch those thoughts and you're like, hang on a second. Where's this thought taking me? Like, is this loving to me? Is it coming from my monkey mind, from the ego? Or is it the thought is aligned with God, with higher mind, with universe, whatever you want to call it, and shifting that perspective? And that's like a mental gym, and that requires a lot of energy and efforts. And this is something I'm beginning to catch faster now than I did before.
Wow. Lena, I just wanted to know, while I was, reading about you, I just learned that you are on a mission to bridge the gap between the corporate and, of course, we are having this conversation between, helping corporates with, making this part of their life or making them aware. So how are you doing that? Could you like to share with us?
Yeah, so I mean, I do it through speaking. That's probably my biggest passion is to speak. And I came across, you can call it like a profiling tool, which I really wouldn't put it as profiling tool, called human design. Wow. So human design, for those people who are familiar with like Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder, DISC, it's like a similar sort of thing, but it's a personal self-development tool on steroids, I would call. And it looks at our date and time and place of birth, and it generates our energetic blueprints. And it's actually based on quantum physics, genetics, Kabbalah, astrology, and I Ching. So when I first came across human design, it completely blew my mind. Not because it gave me, it obviously gave me some new insights, but it reaffirmed something I've already intuitively knew since I was about 5 years old. So human design, basically what it does, when we look at it from very practical corporate sense, it helps us to understand how we are wired to optimize our energy. And we all, I think, understand the importance of energy, because the more energy we have, the more productive we become, more engaged, more focused. When there is no energy, there's like almost nothing. We will die, literally. Like without energy, there is no life. Energy is our highest currency. So it helps us to get into alignment with our natural energetic blueprint. It helps us to make decisions that are correct for ourselves, to communicate, it's an incredible self-understanding tool. And then when we start looking more, I guess, into esoteric side, it shows us our life purpose, our spiritual purpose, what drives us, the message we're here to communicate in this life, and just so much more. So when I first came across human design, it was about 3.5 years ago, it blew my mind. And then I spent about a year on a couch figuring out what to do with my life. And when I received it's just like intuition, that I followed. And it was for me to bring human design into corporate world, to help people to understand themselves on a deeper level, obviously from organizational perspective, to improve productivity, improve performance, engagements, but on a personal level for people to help them understand who they are. And this is basically one of the tools that I then use in a corporate organizations for self-development, for merging, I guess, the spiritual and corporate worlds.
Wow. Also, I know that you have co-authored a book called as You Can Have It All. So, if you would like to share some insights from that book for our listeners, it would be wonderful.
To be honest, I mean, it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It was written from a very different energy, different place in my life. And yeah, like right now, it probably wouldn't have any relevance really to what I was doing. But it was just really great to be involved with other, I don't know how many, maybe like 50 incredible women entrepreneurs with a vision, and just to be part of that group.
Wow, wow. Rena, I just wanted to, get back and circle back this conversation on your own entrepreneurial journey, because I would like to share that here in India, the startup wave has really picked up, and I think it is picking up in a lot of countries. Just wanted to know, if you could share any, I think the ground rules most of the times remains the same. You have to be ethical, you have to, be honest about your approach, be it your clients or whoever the stakeholder that you are serving. And even if you are committing mistakes, you have to, adapt to it and change it and do everything with the best of your abilities. But what are some other ground rules or key lessons that you would like to share from your own journey running your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. A few years ago, I went to the psychic fair, and this woman, she did my reading, and then she measured my aura, so that energy field around me. And it was really, really interesting. And I remember when I was leaving, she took my hands and she looked at me and she says, "You really have to learn how to trust yourself." And I looked at her and I said, "I do trust myself." And I will never forget the look in her eyes, like with this, like kind of, you will know what you mean, what I mean later. She didn't say that, but that's like, I'll never forget that look. And I still to this day, I remember it. And that's the one thing I've learned over the years. I mentioned already, I went a bit crazy on coaching and mentoring, and I've invested, I don't know, crazy amounts of money. And some of it was necessary completely, because having never had business before, I didn't really know where to start. I didn't even know what marketing was for. Like, I had no clue. But at a certain stage, we need to learn how to trust ourselves and stop trying to copy success of other people. And I had like a few mentors and few coaches where said, well, follow this strategy because that worked for me. And they do it with the best intention in their hearts. I mean, that's nothing to do with them. But yet it doesn't feel aligned for me. Like, I feel like I'm pushing, I'm exerting effort. It's not fun. But because, there were authority figures for me, I would follow their steps and I would try to replicate what they do, and it never worked for me. So the most important thing I've learned is that you can't replicate someone's success. At the end of the day, like within you, intuitively, what is it that you are meant to be doing and how you're meant to be doing. And the way you know it is that it feels exciting. It doesn't feel like effort. It feels easy. You feel in the flow. And if that feeling is not there, if you're pushing, if you're struggling, if you're efforting, it's just not it's not an inspired action for you.
Yes. So this brings me to a very important question. Personally, in my life, every time, I have achieved something, I feel happy about it, and after a time, I really do not enjoy that success. Something new comes up, a new quest to go to a new direction comes up, right? Sometimes I feel that, I'm never happy with whatever or wherever I am in life. And sometimes I feel, okay, things are happening for good. So it is sometimes difficult for me to, I know this might sound funny, but there could not be a single definition for success. But then what advice would you give me to, where should I stop seeking success?
Well, I mean, I've asked, so I mentioned Daryl Anka before. He's a Hollywood producer, and he also calls himself Bashar. And I actually had a privilege of having a short conversation with them one-on-one, and I asked him a very similar question.
Okay.
And he said to me, you have got to redefine the meaning of success. The thing is, we think success lies outside of us. It's in attaining this job, career, money, relationship, whatever that is. But at the end of the day, if we don't feel peace within ourselves, let's say you get this job that pays you like 100K, whatever, million, doesn't matter. But you have this turmoil within yourself where you feel anxious, you feel stressed, whatever it is, what good is this £100,000 going to do to you? It's like, yeah, well, I can buy everything I want, but within me, I feel chaos, you know? Or you meet like someone and you have amazing like relationship, but you feel so insecure within yourself that it's just driving you insane. Like you just like can't find yourself a place, you know? So what good is that relationship then to you? So for me, you know, when I look at success, before it was like, yeah, I just want to have a new contract. I want to go travel. I want to put kids in a private school. I want to have a bigger house. Now, for me, it's just peace of mind, because I know when I'm peaceful on the inside, the world responds differently, right? Because everything is energy, and whatever we experience inside, that's exactly what we're going to experience outside. But when we're going to keep on chasing those things outside of ourselves, like the job, career, whatever it is, it's always going to be very fleeting fulfillment. It's never going to last. And before we even get it, we're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I know, I've been there before. So it's more like, as I said, it's more like success is something you feel internally, and then external success is a byproduct of how you feel about yourself.
So true, so true. You know, with this, you know, conversation, I've understood that, you know, your own personal journey has been, very different. Unlike a lot of folks who are continuously working in organizations for many, many years, and, you know, due to, as you rightly said, due to whatever responsibilities, financial responsibilities, or, career, the understanding of their own career. For me, it has been a bit of a journey, and I am at this stage in the middle of a big career transition. In my mind, I feel it's a big career transition, right? So, what advice would you like to share in terms of how to one do something which is closer to fulfillment, if I were to put it that way?
So I always say, follow the path of the most excitement. That's why it's coming to you, I mean, like I did, when I think about, for example, my career and how it always played out, I would always would I love it? I wasn't even into personal development. I didn't know anything about law of attraction, manifestation, universe, God. I wasn't religious. I wasn't spiritual. I mean, I was aware that there is something bigger than me. I mean, I've had this awareness since I was a little kid, but it's been so suppressed that I didn't really do anything. But what I always knew is to trust that excitement. And I remember when, I think it was, 2008, no, probably later. My son was about 4 years old, so it might have been 2011. And I was working for a company called Rackspace. So Rackspace is like a world name. It's rated like the top 5 or 6 companies in UK to work for, because the benefits are amazing. Everything is amazing. But in the meantime, all I wanted was to contract. I just wanted to be a contractor. That's it. I didn't know how it was going to be possible because I didn't have a British passport and all of the visas, all of the stuff tied to it. But I wanted it. And then I remember the phone call came and there was a recruiter and saying, well, we can sponsor your visa. We have a contract for 4 weeks. Are you in? Oh, wow. And without even a second thought, I said yes. And I've resigned the same day. It caused some debates in the family.
Got it.
But you know what? For the next 8 years, I quadrupled my salary. I've had amazing opportunities to travel, to contract, to meet so many wonderful people, just purely because I followed that path of excitement. And I've always done it, always. So my suggestion when it comes to career, it's less about Excel spreadsheets, how much it's going to be worth, where the distance is. Do you feel excited? Does it excite you? Yes or no? If it's yes, just go for it. Everything will work out. You just got to follow that feeling.
Yes. That's where again, I have a question here. Then how do, I know you have answered it, but I'm just trying to go deeper here, because I know that you could share something here. Is that why do we make things too exaggerated in our mind? I would like to know that, because please, if you could address here.
Well, I mean, how much time do you have? Because we all have ego, right? We've constructed ego as a self-made tool. And we've created it when in our childhood, to protect ourselves from things we didn't like to experience. And I gave earlier an example, let's say you drop an ice cream and your mom or your dad don't pick it up and you decide you're not lovable. So you start putting this barrier, this shield around you. I mean, for me, for example, I went through a few immigrations as a kid, as a teenager. So we moved from Russia to Israel when I was 13. And when I got there, nobody could obviously understand me because I couldn't speak Hebrew. So I've decided I'm fine on my own. I don't need anyone else. And that was a lot of barriers I put around myself. And then a year later, we moved to South Africa. And there was English. And I didn't speak any English. I spoke Hebrew now and Russian. And again, the same thing happened. So what do you think I've done? I put more shields and more barriers around myself. So when it then comes, later in our lives, you start, I'm fine. I don't need anyone. It's like you make yourself a lot tougher than what you truly are, because underneath all of that, there is still a very insecure 11-year-old child, but you refuse to look at it and you refuse to deal with it because you're probably not even conscious of it because you've suppressed it. And then when certain things start coming up in your life, involuntarily or subconsciously, that child starts playing out and your mind gets very, very, very loud. And there's a lot of tools and techniques on how we can navigate this. And it's been a lot of my personal journey, especially over the last year, how to deal with the noise in the mind, because it can pretty much drive us insane. I know that voice in the head is crazy. So, I mean, the people I really admire and I respect and I listen and I learn from, Michael Singer, he is great. He talks a lot about that voice in your head and how to deal with it. Meditations, detaching yourself, observing that voice. And at the end of the day, just understanding that it's only our thoughts that can cause us pain, right? It's nothing external to our minds that can injure us. All of the distress and turmoil and pain we are causing to ourselves. It's just the thoughts. And what is the thought? Thought is just an energy, right? So it's actually because we are energy. So we've got this bunch of little electrical charges hammering our brain, and we're giving them all the power. So when we then understand that all we're doing is we're just telling ourselves stories, and we can actually drop the story at any time we like and choose to see things differently. But until we come to that realization, it's work, it's a process.
Absolutely. Lena, when I was reading about you, I also learned that you have been sharing on a lot of human resource specific platforms, right? Now, if I were to be my own say human resource consultant, okay, then how do I start spreading this thought, or start going out and sharing with the community? Because sometimes I feel once you go out and share your message, that can really help. So how do one get out of that comfort zone and go out and share what needs to be done, like how you are doing?
Well, I mean, firstly, you obviously need to have a vision, I believe. What are you sharing? Why are you sharing it? Are you why are you doing it? I think understanding why is really important.
Yeah.
And believing in it. Believing in your message, believing in what you've got to say, and understanding that you may not have a full picture. What you share now is going to be very different to what you're going to share 5 years from now, because you're constantly growing and evolving. There is a lot of elements to it, because what I was talking about 2 years ago is very different to what I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what the next 2 years will bring. It's just becoming, I think, more selfish. This is actually probably a good phrase I would use, becoming more selfishly selfish, investing more time and effort and energy and resources into yourself.
Wow.
To really understand what is it that you want to present out to the world, who you're helping, and and speaking. I think the biggest thing is speaking from your personal experience, is the path you walked, rather than reading books and reciting what others done, what they've written. We've got a lot of people doing that, which is great. We also need that, but it depends once again why you are doing what you want to do.
So true, so true. This brings me to a very important question here. There could be people who might be in a particular, say, path, be it their career or their life, and there could be just a feeling that whatever they are doing is right. Okay, and sometimes for them it is not easy to recognize that things are not into perspective. So how do, in that scenarios, one can, you also mentioned about self-evaluating, spending time with self. But what kind of template or exercise or, a simple activity, like an actionable activity that you would suggest that one can do, irrespective of whether the, person is in whatever, be it the person might be happy or might be overcoming with some kind of a trouble. So what advice or some template you would like to share?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Can you just ask it again, please?
Sure. So what I meant is, can you share an actionable exercise which someone can do to evaluate on their own self-discovery process?
On self, well, depending what is it that they want to discover. I mean, what are their challenges? We all have different challenges. Are they trying to manage their emotions? Are they trying to become more confident? Do they want to make better decisions? Do they feel burned out and they don't know how to change that? Are they self-sabotaging? So it's very different. So I think maybe to start with, to identify one area of their lives that is really keeping them stagnant and stuck. So just to give you, for example,
Sure.
just an example from my personal life, it was about 2018 and I was working in this company. It was one of the contracts I got, and it took me about 3 hours, 2.5 hours at least, every morning to drive there and drive back. And I had to be at the office 3-4 times a week. And I was literally going crazy, not even because of the drive, but because of the environment. I knew that environment wasn't right for me, and I didn't know what to do about it. And then one day I was driving, and a friend of mine sent me a message saying to me, listen to this guy. She says, you're gonna really resonate. And I was like, oh, not another self-help, please, no. But eventually the radio tunes were driving me insane. And it was on the YouTube, and I pushed the button, and it was Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he was sharing his story about, he's a neuroscientist. He bridges the science and spirituality together. And I remember listening to that podcast, and all of a sudden I didn't care about the traffic. I didn't care about the office. I didn't care if he was there, how miserable I was. Something inside of me shifted that day. And I went like, oh my goodness, I can change my life.
Wow.
I am the creator of my reality. It is up to me, nobody else, to make the change. And up until then, I tried to meditate, but I was like, oh, what a waste of time. I'd rather go for 10-mile run. I hated meditating. I tried. It was just a waste of time. I couldn't connect with it. But that something he said, is just, I said, shifted something within me. So I remember getting to the office. I've downloaded all his books, all his meditations. Lunchtime when I had free, I would go to my car and I would sit and try to meditate. And initially it was tedious, it was boring. And then he came to UK. It was 2019. He came to UK and I went to his 7-day event retreat. And I went there simply wanting to overcome anxiety. I wanted to feel more confident. I was fed up of walking on eggshells around people in my life. And I felt like I was a people pleaser and I didn't want to be that.
Wow.
And that's what I went there for.
Wow.
But that was the beginning of my journey, because there were certain pain points in my life where I was like, I don't want that anymore in my life. I want to have something different. And of course, when I came out of there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a different person, but everything around me is the same. How do I integrate it into my life? And that's basically how my journey started.
Wow. Thank you for sharing this, Lena. We are in 2023. How do you see the next 10 years, in terms of future of work? what areas. I remember you mentioned about emotional intelligence, but with that, what are the areas or certain qualities or certain maybe even say career fields we must look at and try to build ourselves with that entire spectrum.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can really see some companies do that where they introduce, for example, like once a week they'll have a meditation hour, or,
Wow.
some companies also they give the employees like something £100, I don't know, a quarter, a month, I can't remember, to invest in their personal development, and they're quite specific, like use it on a course, use it on a coach, use it on a mentor, whatever it is that you like. And my wish is obviously to see more companies doing that kind of thing, to introduce like things like I mentioned, human design. Human
Correct.
design is a life-changing tool when it comes to organizations, because when you think about it, a lot of companies use like different profiling tools, and I'm not dishing them. I'm sure they're really useful, but what happens is people who ever do this assessments, they are required to answer sometimes up to 200-300 questions. And because we're only using our conscious mind like 5%, right? We're only conscious 5% of the time. Most of the time we live in our subconscious. We're like on autopilot. So the way I answer questions today can be very different the way I answer them in a week from now, especially if in between I went through separation, or my child is sick, or I had insomnia. So then which person are you dealing with? You know what I mean? There's like, for me, there is no truth there. While with human design, it doesn't require you to answer a single question. It looks at your also conscious and your subconscious state of being, because most of our problems, most of our issues, anxieties, depressions, whatever, it's not something we consciously do, because why would we want to hurt ourselves? It's the programs that we're running, and we're running them most of the time. So, and unless, like Carl Jung said, unless you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you call it fate. And having like tools like that in organizations is a game changer, because it really helps, the leadership's teams to see their people for who they are, not for who they think they are. And there's a big, big difference. So yeah, I'm hoping, that companies will kind of invest more in a personal development of the people. They will introduce new out-of-the-box tools and stop rearranging and doing everything to accommodate the people, and instead really encourage the people to look deeper within themselves.
Okay. Up till now, I always used to correlate remote work with the future of work. So is this the right way of thinking?
Well, I mean, there's no right and wrong. If it's right for you, then it's the right way of thinking.
Okay, got it. So, on that note, thank you, Lena, for giving your valuable time, sharing some fantastic insights. I got goosebumps with your insights. So, thank you really for touching, my life as well as our listeners. And would you like to share some closing comments? If you have something to share, something that, like a mantra or something, feel free to go ahead and share.
So I actually got this written in front of me. I'm busy like with Course in Miracles, and it had a profound impact on my life. And there's just a little line that I've got written in front of me I will share, which says, "There is nothing in the world that has the power to make you ill, weak, or frail, but it is you who has the power to dominate all things you see by recognizing who you truly are." And it is so true. I think once we give up that notion that we are just frail, weak bodies, and that somebody outside of us has control and can hurt us, we really can step into our full power. And when we're in our full power, there is pretty much nothing we can achieve.
Wow. Thank you, Lena. Now, thank you for sharing this. I will later take this quote from you, and I'll write it down on my own diary that I have. So thank you so much once again. And, looking forward to some more sessions in the coming months. We'll plan a new topic, and we'll keep contributing to the world. Thank you, Lena.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Thank you, listeners, for being part of this show. And I assure you that in the coming times, we'll be discussing more and more on, the future of work, career growth, personal finance, startups, and managing failures. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.